We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here at selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. And my wonderful guest is Annabella Quintero. And we're going to be talking about quite a number of things today. But one of them, she's a cultural wellness coach. So how do we actually understand what that means? She's also a best-selling author, Step, Step, Jump. And we're going to be talking all about that as well. And we're also going to be talking about that as a founder and a development of collective wellness company. She's devoted and redefining cultural wellness through workshops that go beyond physical appearance, but actually honor your whole selves by using different ancient cultural lenses. As a result of her speaking and workshop, she helps leaders and coaches embrace a holistic approach to wellness, resulting in stability, life changes, and Annabella partners with coaches and leaders to understand their financial, their political, their spiritual history that informs them of their present moment, and how cultural dominance is discreetly perpetuated in the wellness industry and in society. And she really loves helping others transform trauma into triumph. Her life was irrevocably altered on September 11, 2001, where she narrowly escaped from the 46th floor of the World Trade Center during the deadliest terror attack on the US soil. So she truly does know what terror means. And, life happens to us, but actually for us, doesn't it, Annabella? We
Yes,
can't help but what happens to us, but what we do with it is really what we're here for, is what the test is. Welcome to the show and Happy New
thank
Year.
you for having me. Thank you. So exciting. Yes, Happy New Year 2023.
Yes, it's a big question mark, 2023, isn't it? And again, it's like, we don't know what's going to happen to us in 2023, but if we're prepared to accept, whatever comes to us and be able to take it and, reconstruct it into something positive, that's really the kind of the attitude we need to have around it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Exactly.
But how do we get there? That's the big question.
I'd say that, well, I think for us to accept what we're feeling at the moment, I think there's a lot of sometimes we want to just be happy, or we want to just focus on the positive, but that usually comes with us integrating what's happened in the shadow, what's happened that has caused us pain and suffering. And then we finally transcend that and get to a point where we can be happy. But it's human to feel all of our emotions. And I think that happiness needs to also define our ability to be able to be emotionally well and have language around our emotions. And so not just to think of emotions as good or bad or light or darkness, but really to look at all of our humanity and really enjoy that whole spectrum, because that's life.
I always say our emotions are here as an indication of how we feel in the moment. And it is to acknowledge that feeling, to understand why we're there in that moment, but it's not to become emotional over the emotion.
That's powerful. Yeah. Practicing self-awareness and self-reflection is a huge part of being able to tease that out. Because unless you do that, sometimes it's hard to understand, oh, well, why am I feeling this way when this memory comes up? Or why is it when I smell something, it just takes me right back, right to that moment, and you feel
good
like
or
you're
bad.
Yeah, so being able to practice that, whether it's, for me, it was dancing, it was journaling, and a meditation, or being in silent prayer. And those three ways have really helped me on my journey of just evolving my own healing.
I mean, there you are in the tower. What floor were you on?
the 46th floor.
So you have to get down 46 floors. I don't know how much smoke was there. People are confused of what's happening. They just know, is it an attack? Is it an explosion? But you need to get out of there. And
Actually, no one knew.
really,
Yeah, our cell phones didn't work. And
mm,
so I would open up. I had only lived in New York for a few years. I was born and raised in Seattle, and I wanted to pursue my dreams of modeling and breakdancing. And I landed this amazing job at this boutique hedge fund. And so it was my job to get my boss ready for the stock market. And so here I am printing up the portfolio, getting ready, and then something just falls on my tower. And I'm like, oh, another building must have fallen. And there wasn't an alarm, there wasn't an announcement. So
wow.
I go to the window and I look out, and it's a clear, crisp, beautiful fall day,
Mm,
and the buildings are upright. And then I realize, oh, the buildings are actually shorter than my tower. So what was that? And then all of a sudden I start feeling an earthquake. But I knew I had been in an earthquake in California, but we're in New York. New York doesn't
yes.
have earthquakes, right? So I'm like, okay, what is that? So that freaked me out. And then I grabbed my purse and got to the door, and there I was like, ay Dios mío, ¿qué hago? Oh dear God, what do I do?
Mm,
And I look into the office, and all the sunshine went away, and it was all gray.
mm,
And I knew that was my answer.
yes.
And so that's really where I was looking under the desk trying to think, oh, should I go underneath because it was
Mm,
an earthquake? But I knew at that moment. And then
get
the
out.
fear set in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fear. And I was by myself, right? I mean, like I said, I opened the office on this floor. Everyone had different businesses. And so when I finally got to the stairwell, when I opened the door, um, I was choking. There was
Mm,
like this invisible stench.
mhm,
And I had been in fires before, but I had never smelled anything like this before. And it was like singeing my nose hairs.
mm.
I was like almost choking. And then that's when I knew, oh no, I have to get out of here. But there wasn't an alarm even at that moment. And there wasn't, even when I got into the stairwell, there wasn't anyone. I was still by myself.
Really?
Oh yeah. And then I was like, okay, something fell in the building. There's an earthquake, and now there's something burning. So there must be a fire. And then that's when I put my hand on the railing, and I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. And I stepped with my left, and I stepped with my right, and I
Mm.
step, jumped down 46 flights. And it wasn't until the 33rd floor that I encountered people. Yeah, but we didn't know what was happening.
No, I mean, the fact that, the fire alarm didn't go off, that there wasn't something, obviously the building shook or must have shaken from the one next to it, but it's one doesn't expect that, 9 o'clock in the morning, to have a terrorist, plane go into a building. And when, you think more earthquake, you think more natural disaster, certainly not terrorism. And so when did you actually realize this was more serious as you're going down the stairs?
Yeah, one of the persons that would usually come, like a maintenance worker,
Hmm.
right, for the building, he had a two-way pager, and that was the only thing that was working at the time. So, if you had a cell phone, that wasn't working, but
Hmm.
they used to be called Skyway pagers.
Yes, I remember
They
them.
were
I remember pages. I'm that old.
Yeah, they were like these devices that were basically text messaging.
Yeah.
That's what you were doing back
Mm.
and forth, but they were the only thing that was working. And and then that's when he had said, "Oh, a plane hit us." And we were like, "Oh my goodness." And then we were like, "Oh my goodness, there's a plane on the top of this tower," because we were still in the building. We were still
Right.
trying to get out, right? And then he's like, oh, another plane hit tower two. And
Yeah,
that's when we knew it wasn't an accident.
yeah.
And then that's when it was like fear just set in. And um it changed the whole mood of everyone. And that's when we finally knew what was happening. But I think we were like in around the 20s, around there.
I've listened to your audio on, the first part of it where you were talking about, you're in a hurry. You're in a hurry to get out of there. Why isn't everybody else in a hurry? Why aren't they, realizing this is dangerous? Move your ass, get going.
I couldn't believe that. I was
Yeah.
like, we pack ourselves like a bunch of
Mhm.
sardines in the subway to get to work. Yet in the stairwell, people were just lined up on the right side, and the whole middle and left side was open. So the firefighters were coming up,
Mhm.
but as they would pass, I would go down the left part
Mhm.
and then scoot to the right when they were coming up. And yeah, unfortunately, people weren't in a hurry. And even there was one moment where this one lady was like, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be going, like she was bothered the fact that what I was doing. And
Right.
I was like, I was just trying to get out of there. And I was
Mhm.
like, I will go wherever the fuck I want to go.
Yeah,
Like I was just
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
sorry
Do
for the
you
F bomb.
realize the danger in right now? This is a stop for a little chit chat. This is no water cooler. Move your bloody
Yeah.
ass.
Yes, exactly. I was just trying to get out of there. It was so like I couldn't understand that, but
I
people
suppose
didn't
they were
really
trying to
know.
be kind of orderly and all of that, but you can still pick up the pace.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so it was, I mean, that was another thing too that I feel that helped me get out of the tower sooner than other people, and why I wasn't out in the street when when the tower had fallen. So I finally got to, when I finally got out, I walked up Broadway, and this lady met with me. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I just couldn't speak. I was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I was wet
Yeah.
because at the bottom of the floors, it's like all the sprinklers were on finally, and then the alarms were finally on at the bottom floors. And there was tons of water. So we were trekking in,
Mm.
in walking in all this water when we had gotten into the lobby. So finally, when I got out, I was drenched, and then I was crying. So
Mm.
I
A
was a
mess.
wet
A mess.
ball.
Yeah.
My clothes were drenched. I was crying. I couldn't believe I made it to
Yeah.
solid ground. It felt, to be on Mother Earth, I was like, oh my goodness, I made it out of there. It was just, so she came and she had a whole bag of tissues from Dwayne Reed. And she was like, well, can I walk with you? I was like, okay. I mean, and then she just held my arm and walked with me and was like, well, do you want to call your mom? I was like, I'm trying to call her on my phone. It's not working. She's like, well, do you want to call her on the payphone? And I was like, and there was a long line. I was like, no, I don't want to be in that long line. And so we kept walking, and then we got to the train station, the NNR, and she was like, well, do you want to get, I go, I do not want to be underground. There's
Right.
no way. It's like,
Yes.
so she helped me get into a cab, and this nice gentleman, Anthony, shared it with me. And we finally get in, and we're a block in, and I'm like, I'm just nervous. I want to
Yeah.
get out of there. I want to go home to the Bronx,
Right. Yes. Yes.
my quiet, peaceful neighborhood.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these people run into the intersection, and they literally almost get hit by all the cars because we were on Canal and Church. And with all the tall buildings, like
Yes. You can't
people were
see what's going
still,
on. Yeah.
no one really knew what was
Yeah.
happening unless you had just come from the trade, the
Right.
Twin Towers. You wouldn't have known. So, and then the taxi was like, wait, the people, because I was like, let's go. Once it
Yeah.
turned green, he's like, wait, the people. And then this plume came behind them. And everyone was running every which way, trying to get into cars, trying to get
Yeah.
into stores, trying to escape from the plume because no one really knew what that was.
Right.
And, he locked the doors, and we didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until we kept going west And we finally got to the Avenue of the Americas and we went north. And that's when Anthony and I turned around and we could see that only Tower 1 was left standing.
Mm,
And we realized the plume was Tower 2 falling.
right.
And we lost it. We were
Yes.
just like, oh my goodness,
Was
the
he from the
people.
tower too?
He was actually working on a construction job on top of the Federal Reserve building, which is kitty corner to the
Hmm.
Twin Towers, but it's a really short building. So thank God he left. I mean,
Yes.
his boss was like, "You can't leave." Can
Yeah.
you believe that? His boss was telling him and all the whole crew,
Mm.
if you leave, you're losing your job. He's like, "Whatever," and he left.
And do you know if that building got hit or not? I mean, certainly debris and this and that.
No, the Federal Reserve building, no, but
Okay.
just the debris and all that.
My
Yeah.
niece lived in New York at that time, and she had literally just moved that month, the beginning of the month. And it turns out that her building where she was in had got hit. And like there was a woman in a shower that because of the explosion, the shower glass broke and just cut her completely. And so,
Oh,
it wasn't just the towers going down, it was the ricochet of everything else around it. And I remember in 2002 coming over to see her, and then it was just the hole in the ground at that time. But as you walked around, you saw chips of building that had been gouged out, from when they fell. And it was but one thing I did notice is where New York had been quite a violent place for quite a long time, but that how everyone came together. And I remember a bit later visiting her on another date, I can't remember, 10 or something, and there was a power outage. And everybody just got flashlights or candles or this, that, and went to their local greens. And everybody was there calm. There wasn't any looting or anything else. It was like, no, we survived 9/11. We can survive this. Well, let's all come together. So it really
mm.
did change the dynamics a great deal of New Yorkers, didn't it?
Oh yes, it definitely did. We definitely came together. It was one of the most beautiful things that had happened. Even for me, when that day, even though it was so traumatic, by the time I had gotten uptown, and I was in Inwood, it's the last tip of Manhattan.
Hmm.
And I tell the cab, no, I'll walk from here because it was like a parking lot. There was only
Yes.
one, it's called the Broadway Bridge that connects northern
Hmm.
Manhattan to the Bronx. And it was like a standstill because
Yeah, you
everyone
can
was trying
imagine.
to
Everybody's
leave.
trying to get out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, no, don't worry. Thank you. I got it from here. So I walked and then there was a church and I walked into the Good Shepherd Church. And I'm not Catholic, but I was like, oh my goodness, I just need to
Yeah.
breathe and thank the universe and thank
Yes.
God.
Yes.
I made it and I'm there and I'm just like, thank you so much. And I'm crying. And all of a sudden, I feel my blood flow
Mm,
in my veins.
mm.
And I was like, I mean, I was in shock
Yes.
because I had never felt that sensation ever before. And even though I was there around the wooden pew and the stone, I just felt completely one
Hmm.
with everyone in the church, the building, the wood, just Mother Earth. And it was like
You
the
had
layers
tapped
of
into the
creation.
divine energy that was there. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't matter what dominion it was. It was about the divine energy. Mm.
Yes, it so was. And I was like, oh my goodness, we are all one.
Yes.
And it was so clear to me because I had felt it. And so that, I always love sharing this part because it's always happening to us. It's
Yeah.
happening to us now, but
Yeah.
sometimes we're just not awakened to
Right.
it.
We're not
And
waiting to the forest, right? Not until later. We we get stuck on the tours and we don't realize it's happening for us. Right? What are you meant to learn from this? How are you meant to grow from this? What's the lesson here? What's the resilience here? What's the strength here? Right? That's the next stage after the shock.
oh my, yeah. I mean, and I was in shock because I was experienced that. I was like,
Yes.
and so it's like here I had a extremely traumatic, one of the most traumatic moments of my life,
Yes.
experiencing war. And then I had the most beautiful spiritual, physical experience ever.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, why do we hurt each other so
I
much? Like,
know.
why
Why?
why do we believe these lies of
Yes.
separation that
I know.
divide us? And so that's really what's began my work, is like, okay, I'm going to really work on, racism and be against it, and
Mhm.
work on decolonizing, and like, because I'm Latina, I'm
Yeah.
African, I'm Native American and Latino.
Yeah.
And so having all that mixed lineage,
Yes.
and all the ways that even within my own culture we separate from one
Yeah.
another so much. And that's what I've been doing, really working on. That's why I say cultural wellness, because
Mm.
it's like, how does a culture become
Yes.
well? What
Right.
are the ways that we are not dominating and
Hmm.
saying, okay, this is the only way to do life. You have to think this way, you have to do life this way, but how can we be inclusive?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I've just been on this journey of, and it's always been, the answers have always been in what I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
always been in my cultural blind
Mm.
spot, because I grew up Protestant Christian, and like,
Right.
afterwards I went back home to Seattle and went back to my trees and mountains and did a
Hmm.
10-day Vipassana retreat, which is a meditation, which is Eastern ancient
Hmm.
practices, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I had never been in silence for 10 days. It's the best vacation you'll ever take.
But you get to hear who your own inner dialogue. So much time we ignore what's the voice inside is trying to say to us because we're so busy looking for everything on the outside, right? That being actually in that silence where there is no verbal connection to anyone, you're forced to go inside and listen to what the inner voice is saying. And if we can just get out of our own way and listen in, it always is very profound. It's always very truthful. It's very authentic, and it's always there to guide us. But we're so busy chasing the outside, we don't listen to the inside.
I know. The silence, that's one thing. It's like, even if people don't meditate, I was like, even silent prayer, but being in silence, being with Mother Nature, because being able to observe, like,
Mhm.
one of the things that I really took away from that was understanding my own human behavior, because I
Mm,
was suffering. I was crying. I was hysterical. I was angry
mm,
afterwards. I mean, I suffered from PTS that
mm.
I didn't even know what that meant. No one
Yeah,
knew what that meant at
right.
that time. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's three pillars to human behavior. I mean, someone actually knows, like, what makes us tick.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, and it was me observing my mind, like,
Mm.
replaying memories, or sometimes making up stuff, right? We ever do
Mhm,
that? We make up a conversation with someone, and then it brings up all these emotions, and then we start feeling all of these bodily sensations, hot, cold.
mhm,
And it's those three things: our mind, our emotions, our bodily sensations, that dynamic where we either react
mhm.
or we choose to respond. And
Right.
I realized, oh my goodness, that's why I've just been reacting.
Yeah. Yes.
That's why I've just been triggered.
Uh-huh.
I've given myself no space. I wasn't watching myself. I wasn't practicing self reflection, self awareness, where I could understand my own pattern. Right. So that was huge for me. That was just a huge breakthrough for me. And it came from another culture, and it's ancient wisdom,
Mhm.
and it still serves me, and I'm sure it'll serve others in the future as well.
Yeah, most certainly. And that's the point, isn't it? Is that, we we kind of got caught up in the Western philosophy that we know it all. And we kind of got arrogant, and in our arrogant, we became ignorant. And if we look at the cultures from around the world that have been eons, and you look at where those cultures stem from, they either listen to the entire heartbeat of the earth, or they are in tune with the stars and the universe, or both, right? And all of these cultures have been cultures that have been formed by paying attention, by listening, by learning, by practicing.
Mm.
by immersing themselves in it. And they don't do it, they are it, right? But
Yes.
here in the Western society, we're always looking for the exterior
Yes.
to find the peace in the interior, whereas these other cultures know, be still and be present, for the interior is where it all lies.
That's so powerful. It's so true because after that, um, it was only like that same week, I was still in Seattle and my dear friend Carolyn had invited me to a sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And she's East Band Cherokee, but she had Lakota teachers. And so she pours lodges. And I was like, okay. She goes, I feel like it's going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but what is it? And
Yeah.
she's like, she goes, I don't really want to tell you too much, but it'll help you. And
We don't
so
want you talking yourself out of it. Yes.
I was like, okay. And that was really a huge step for me because besides the music, my parents are from Ecuador. And so
Mm.
the Andes and the Incans, like I've studied
Yes.
that. We're very proud of that. But I never really had a true relationship or a connection by living that way. Right.
Yes.
And so I went to the sweat lodge and I was like, oh my goodness, like, the way you enter and then, when that drum came on and it was like the heartbeat of Mother
Mm-hmm.
Earth and
Mm-hmm.
and then as Carolyn would pour the water on the hot stones, the lava rocks, and then all the steam. So it's like the drums, the prayers, the
Yeah.
singing, and just I had never experienced that. And literally, I'm so glad she invited me because even though I did Vipassana, which helped me understand my human behavior, my
Yeah.
mind, my body needed healing.
Yes.
And the sweat lodge allowed, I mean, literally, Mother Earth
Mm-hmm.
literally transmuted all that trauma from my body and healed me. And I can never say that I would have never said that ever in my
Mm-hmm.
life, like if I had not experienced that. And I was like, Mother Earth's alive. Like, I mean, just the
Yes.
whole the
I'm
whole
very pissed
thing.
off with this.
Yes, for a lot of reasons too.
Very
Yeah.
well, very valid
And
reasons. Yeah.
yeah, and it was just it was such a profound shift for me to understand, like, wow, allowing my body to heal was crucial to that whole process. And yeah, it's just, and like I said, that was another thing I did. I made my healing my priority. So
Yes.
even though I had never done something like
Yeah.
that, I was like, I'm so grateful that I had the right people in my life to invite
Yeah.
me, so that I would have the courage and feel safe enough to do it. And it shifted me completely.
There is the for you, right?
What?
That there is the for you, right?
Yes.
you've had the thing that's happened to you, but now there is the for you, because I look at any trauma that we have in life, and the obviously the trauma, the pain, the anguish, the terror, everything that goes along with it. And then once you kind of get over the shock of it, or kind of processing it, you need to step away from the pain of it and look at, okay, how do I heal from this? And the willingness to go through the process of the healing. Otherwise, we stay victims. Now, we were victimized, but we
Yeah.
don't have to stay victims. And
Yeah.
that is a choice that we have to make. Okay, how do I heal from this? And only when you're willing to again be present and allow to be guided, or things to come to you to take you on this path, this redirection, this new journey of experiences. And with each experience, it opens up more and more understanding. And you realize it's nothing out there. It's all at the depth of the heart, soul, and spirit in here. That is
Mm-hmm.
where the sanctuary is, where the understanding is, where the knowledge is, where
Mm-hmm.
my peace lies. And if we don't come from an open heart, we can't receive any of that. But when we have had a trauma, the first thing people do is shut the heart down. That's when you need your heart the most.
Oh yeah. And it's also when your heart is open and it's hurt and you are sobbing and crying, because I had tremendous amount of survivor's guilt
Mm,
that I had survived and other people didn't, and I was mourning all of them,
yes.
and it was really hard to just make a simple task mean something,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh my goodness, here I am in this earth. I'm alive. I can move. I can feel. And is this task that I'm doing worthy of my life? Because so many other people are not living. And it was just this vicious cycle.
Yeah. And
And
nothing in your control.
yeah,
In the
and
sense of who lived and who didn't,
yeah, but
right?
it was still on my
Yeah.
mind, and it had me depressed and crying. And
Mm,
so, but I feel that in those at that time, especially that fall, and even, after that, but it opened up my heart to what it really means
mm,
to be human and alive.
yes.
It became such a huge gift that it was almost like, well, I need to protect this life now. So now what am I going to do with this? Like,
Yeah.
right? And
You've been
then
given a gift of life. Now what's the next chapter, right?
yeah,
Honor the
yeah,
gift as you felt when you felt the blood run through your veins in the church. That was to remind you you are alive, right? Now honor this life and go do something that's meaningful.
yeah. And sometimes the weight of that question would
Yeah.
like smash me down, because then I'd feel like, okay, what I'm doing is not big enough.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Right? So then
I
you
should
fall
be
into
doing
that
something
trap.
grandioso. Yes.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so difficult.
Yeah.
That's why I understand depression and
Hmm.
crippling grief,
Hmm.
because sometimes when you're so grateful, it takes away the joy of life, because it almost
Yeah.
feels like what you're doing is not enough. And
Why did I survive and this person not survive? Why did you choose me? And it's not, well, you chose yourself.
well,
That's really
and
bottom line of it.
yeah, and I think that's, when you're always, because I had that, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Always like confronting it every
Mm.
morning. I realized, I was like, well, what am I good at? Like, I mean,
Mm.
I love dancing. I was a B girl, and I was doing salsa, and then I was modeling, and I had this great job on Wall Street. And I was like, but, what moves my soul? What is my soul's purpose? And one of the things that I couldn't really, I was looking for that one thing to dive into, but when I stepped back, I realized all I'm really good at is loving. And I was
Hello.
like, and
That
that's
is the
enough.
actual generator of life.
I was like, that's okay. That's
Yes.
enough.
Yes.
But I finally found, like,
Mm.
okay, I'm a lover of life. I love
Yes.
people. And that's what I do. That's who I am. I can't, and it's not till many, many years later that, as I was reconnecting more with my indigenous roots, that from the Andes, there's three things that are always the most powerful things: wisdom,
Hmm.
working, and loving.
Yeah. And they work together.
And none of them is more
No,
important than the
no.
other. You
There
have
is
to have
synergy.
all three.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, okay.
They're actually what I call kind of the knowingness. I was brought to this earth to ignite heart and souls. That's my journey. And, for me, it is opening up to the wisdom and just channeling the knowledge, which means you go from the gut, the feeling. Why do I know this? You don't need to know why. You just know. Let it resonate with the heart in truth. Let it go into the spirit into action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And that is the knowingness. And it's realizing we need the the essence of the universe's wisdom to come through us and guide our hearts and our spirits into the right direction. And the intellect of the mind will then be the tools that we use in order to do what we are meant to do. But we've got to feel the wisdom, feel the knowledge, and not get stuck in the knowledge, because that's just the human knowledge, and we're not incorporating the spirit and the divine knowledge that is there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what many of the ancient people, the Incas and this and that, although they started off all right, generally man came in and misconstrued, as religions being misconstrued by man to benefit them rather than be the divine message. But
Mm-hmm.
all of these fundamentals all came into that core, the wisdom that you put to work from your heart, right? And when we can step into that, then we go,
Yeah.
okay, I can get out of my own way. I can just trust what I'm here to do and just do it, just be it.
That is so powerful. I hope so many people open their hearts more
Mm.
and walk, move forward and lead with their hearts
Yes,
and lead with
that
it.
is that is the it's your compass, it's your generator. You know that nothing can come through a closed heart. You have to have an open, and I don't care if it's been injured a dozen times. Believe me, your heart is very, very good at healing, right? Because whatever's happened to you that hurt you just strengthens the heart, and it means that you have more love to give to other people because you understand the pain.
Mm-hmm. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to, as I story tell, what I
Mm.
found is when I'm coaching others and helping them with their speaking, and they're trying to either sell something in their company, or
Yeah.
they're trying to build a culture in their teams at work. But what I tell the leaders is like, okay, what's a story that you have? What's a
Yes.
personal story you can share? And then
Mm.
we go through different ones. And even in that process, what I have seen happen with leaders is they evolve and grow so much, because usually they're telling me stories they haven't told anyone.
Right.
And so
The heart connecting.
their
The
heart
heart
connect.
connecting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're transforming and evolving. And so it's literally, that's why I say transforming
Mm.
lives one
Yes.
story at a time,
Yes.
because I see it. And so storytelling is such a form of, yes, brand recognition. It's your brand promise, but it's also a spiritual practice
Yeah.
that I truly enjoy doing with my clients, and seeing them grow and seeing how they're creating healthier teams, and being vulnerable, really.
Yeah. I mean, that word vulnerable, people immediately, no, no, I've got to defend myself. I've got to protect myself. And no, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. When you step into heart vulnerability, soul vulnerability, you're actually resonating and vibrating out a higher frequency. You're actually resonating on those higher vibrations. That in itself is a protection to a certain extent, because the people who are on the lower vibration just simply can't reach you. They're not up on your level of vibration. So they can't have that effect on you. So people are, oh, I want to be guarded, I want to be protected. You protect yourself with the love, with the heart, with the soul, with the spirit living in its truth, living in its beingness. And that raises your frequency. And the higher you rev up on that love frequency, you cannot knowingly do any harm to anyone, for it harms yourself. And less harm is going to be done to you because you are love itself.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, because it's true. Because when you really love people, when you see the injustice in the world, you
Yes.
act on it, you
Yes.
speak on it. You don't just, it hurts you too
Yeah.
much to stay quiet or
Right.
silent, right?
Exactly.
And it
Yeah.
keeps you in action that is helping others, because we can raise our own, right? Our own energy and how we're feeling, but having love is much,
Mm.
it's not just for oneself, but
No,
it's for everyone,
it's
right?
being
So
the love, being the
yes.
love, right? You know,
Mhm.
when you're around somebody that comes from a place of love, you're not, it isn't what you do, right? It is, I want to be around this person because of their heart. When
Mm.
somebody tells a story from the heart, what do you see them from? You see them as a heart who's had an experience. right? It's not about the experience than the heart. It's about the heart that's had the experience, and you connect more with them. And so this is why having your CEOs, etc., being vulnerable enough to tell a story, a human story that comes from their heart of an experience they've had. It's not only saying to everybody, this is my heart, right? But it's saying to everyone else, you're like us.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
relate. We
They
can open these
can.
channels of communication, right?
Oh
It's an
yeah. And
invitation.
oh yeah. And then everyone else feels like, oh, now I have permission
Yeah,
to be me. Now I have
yeah,
permission to share my story.
yeah.
Or, oh, that's why they care so much about this work.
Mm, yeah,
And they understand that person in a completely
yeah.
different way. Now they're like, oh, no wonder they're a certain way, or why they
Yes,
have those idiosyncrasies, right?
yes. Yes. And again, with idiosyncrasies, I'm probably one of the wackiest people that you know. My kids certainly do know it. And it's like, but this is who I am. That I spent 55 years trying to conform to other people's expectations. And all it did was just destroy my heart and soul, right? And it's just the measure of who you are isn't by societal dictation of what you should be. The measure of who you are is how much you are connected from heart in everything that you do. That is really, and it doesn't matter if you're crazy or wacky or do something completely peculiar. If it comes from the heart and people know it's for good, that it's really something somebody's doing for good, we embrace that wackiness. We love it.
It's so true.
One of the things I noticed in your audio when I listened to that first chapter, the name of your book, um, step, step, jump. And that's you coming down the stairs, step, step, jump, step, step, jump. It's like, kind of that metaphor for life is that we take these steps and then sometimes we can jump, avoid a couple of steps, right? But unless we take the one step, two step, we can't take the next two or three steps in one leap. So that first two steps are very important, aren't they?
Oh, tremendously, tremendously. I mean, that's like even in my healing, I share like the first step, the first phase for me was acknowledging that
Mm.
I was triggered, that I had trauma. And I think in general, if we're growing and we are trying to have an amazing 2023, then we need to figure out what we need to acknowledge the things we need to address.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever that is, because
Yes.
being in denial is not going to change your life. And then
It's a
step
repeat of
two,
2022. How was that year for you? Not good? Okay. So what are you going to do different this year?
yeah.
You
And
got
then
to
for
acknowledge
step
what went
two,
wrong so you can put it right.
it's so true. So that's step one, acknowledging, right?
Yes.
And then step two is practicing self-reflection and self-awareness.
Yes.
Some people meditate, some people can't. That's why I also have a journal that if folks want to get it on my website, it's called stepstepjump.com, but it's a human triad journal.
Mm-hmm.
And you can download it and you have a triangle and literally you're journaling about a situation that I put the name of the emotion
Mm-hmm.
because I found that, okay, most people don't like to sit in their emotions. So let's go back to this emotion. Let's say envy.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you felt envy? And then they'll journal, the story in the mind part, and then envy. And then what came up in your body? Like, how did
Mm.
that make you feel? And where were you hot? Where were you cold? Where were you contracting? And then they have a full pattern
Mm.
for that emotion. So
Yes.
they can see, okay, the last time I was angry or the last time I felt jealous, this is my pattern. This was the story. This is what came up in my body. This is all the emotions that came with that one. Because usually emotions, you start with one emotion, but then there's a lot of emotions that come around it too.
The emotional over the emotion, right? Yeah. But what you're doing is breaking it down from one emotion at a time and to actually understand how do you feel good? Did you feel good or bad? And you talked about constricting and you're constricting. When we crunch down or crunch up, there is no energy, no chi, no flow in our bodies. The more we crunch, the more we're cutting off any of that circulation and that flow, and the less clarity we have. So if we take a word and then we start looking at it, what does it make our body do? What does it make our psyche do? Oh gosh, no, that's an uncomfortable feeling. Why do I want to go there? And
Yeah.
when I'm in that space, I have no clarity. Why do I want to put myself there? But we don't realize half the time those little steps that we're taking have an impact. And maybe you're landing on one foot, you could twist your ankle. So maybe it's being aware of what's working for you and what isn't. But most of the time, we're not aware until you break it down. And by breaking it down, you become aware, which means now you can make better choices.
Oh, yes. Now that's when you have the power, is to give yourself that space. Okay, you're like, oh, I have this whole pattern. Oh, and I've just been going and texting someone or sending that email out that I wish I didn't send, or right,
Reacting,
or
right?
yelling
Yeah,
when I wish I didn't yell.
yeah.
And then you can finally like, okay, so now what do I want to do? Now, how am I choosing to respond?
Mm.
And even finding yourself knowing that an action is sometimes just observing, knowing that
Yes,
it'll come, it will pass, and you don't need to. That is doing. Observing is doing. We don't have to actually
right, do something.
act.
Well,
And
the big P word, pause.
yes.
Right. If we take a breath and we just pause for a moment, we can assess the situation so much faster with so much more clarity before we respond or react. Right. So
Mhm.
pause, take a breath, because it's yet then you're observing. And in that moment of being, do I really want to go there? I think this route is better. That if you're not pausing, you're reacting, and it becomes more hysterical, and it builds and builds on itself. And if you ask people what the main problem was, they don't remember.
They don't. And then because you weren't thinking about it, you just reacted. You just created all these other problems, and you just
Tornado, yeah. I call it the Fox News effect. Take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption, right? And we do that. We do that to ourselves by reacting to something before we have the full information, or attaching some sort of our own insecurity to that situation that then we react negatively to because of.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and that's why the third thing I call is the jump is,
Yeah.
what is it? What is the new action
Mhm.
you are going to take in 2023 to not repeat that cycle again?
Yes.
Right? Because that's what we have the ability to do. But if we just continue to do the same thing, we are going to get the same result. We are going to still,
Madness.
yeah, it is madness.
Yes.
And I think that's where we're at now, is
Mhm.
what can we co-create for 2023? By what is the new action we're going to do? What will we step into our cultural blind spot? Will we
Mm.
dare to actually know that everything already gave you this reality?
Mhm.
So your answers actually lie in what you don't know.
Yes, I agree. Right. And
It's
then
like,
what
that's where
you
you need
do
to go
know,
search.
has more relevance in when you inquire what you don't know. But we're so afraid of what we don't know. We become paralyzed of it. Instead, I think change the mindset to wonderment. What don't I know? Oh, I want to know. Change how the energy and the enthusiasm is over it, and don't look at it as a something fearful.
Oh yeah. It's transformed my life, and I'm
Hmm.
always a student of life. I love life, but it's in the learning, it's
Yes.
in the experiences, it's in the that's what gives you our, gives us our wisdom. And I really feel like 2023 is going to really require us to do new
Mm.
things and do life differently, and say, hey, what we've been doing here hasn't been working. It's given us the same result. And it's our society really needs to be collectively well, right? I mean, we're at this point.
Collectively, that's the emphasis. Collectively. Everybody says we're going into a recession. Now, that doesn't have to be doomsday. It just means that you have to readjust, and maybe you have to become more creative, how you do things in life, or where you take your business, or what you do, how you interact with people, keeping it always upbeat, but also recognizing the struggle, right? And I think this is such an invitation for us all to come together and be supportive of each other to get through this as a collective.
Yes, absolutely. And also, there's so much more to life than only the economics of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And for us to know that our well-being, what we decide to put attention into and energy in our relationships and how we want to show up for one another, that is huge.
Yes.
That's the majority of life. The
Yes.
economics is important,
Yes.
but
I think when you look at, your life being enriched and abundant, the money will follow. Enrichment and abundance has got nothing to do with the dollar. The dollar just is there to serve you in your enrichment and abundance. And we can all have that enrichment and abundance when we connect with heart, soul, and spirit and our action. I say that activism is talk, actionism is doing something about it, right? And for every problem, there are numerous solutions. But you may have a solution, they may have a solution, and it doesn't mean any are right or wrong. It just means this is the ingredient. Do these ingredients go together in this stew? Is it going to work? And it's only if we're willing to be open to listen to one another. Have you thought about this? Well, I'm looking at it from that point of view, and then looking at everything as a puzzle on the table. How do they fit? Which one could be applied now? How can we take it to that next level and be willing to listen and learn and collaborate cohesively as a collective in
oh
order
yeah.
to be creative to find the solutions?
That's so powerful because it will take everyone's
Yeah.
putting forward their story, putting forward their wisdom to put this puzzle together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of
And
those awkward puzzles where some of it's all the same color, so you have no idea where it goes. The picture on the box, well, actually, there is no picture on the box. So you're putting a puzzle together and you have no idea what it looks like. But isn't that exciting? You know?
I love it.
I mean, this particular genre show is called Choose Positive Living. And the reason why it's named that is that everything is a choice. We don't get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose what we do with it. And when we choose positive living over negative living, we are now actually empowered ourselves to pivot things in the direction we want to go in and not be at the hands of what's being dictated to us.
It's so powerful. I look forward to everyone choosing positive living.
Yes. Everybody I've ever interviewed that's had a challenge in their life, and believe me, that's 99% of them, all have said, I'm very grateful for what happened. Would I like to have changed it when all those lives weren't lost? But, your own journey, that who they've become because of what's happened to them, what they've learned, what they're doing now, the skills, the tools, the heart and mindset, that they wouldn't change any of that. Is that your sense of story as well?
Yeah. I mean, I wish it didn't happen, of course. I
Yeah,
wish there wasn't war.
right.
Right. Because every single time I have to be careful even turning on the TV because it
Yes.
makes me so sad that anyone has to go through that. But yes, I feel like, especially for people that do go through war, I think that there's a wisdom there.
Mm.
And I'm also hoping that in me sharing my story, that others who have gone through warlike situations, that they share their story more to those who don't understand,
Yes.
because I think that that will help us choose another way and realize that war really shouldn't be a choice. It should just be off the table because it hurts people, societies, Mother Earth,
Yes.
and we can no longer afford to only do that. We
Well, and
have,
it should be the last resort, not the first one. But we've also
yeah,
got to realize
I
that
don't even think, I don't think, I mean, me personally, yeah, I just feel like it's time to not
I
allow leaders
know.
to have that type of authority because it's
Yes.
too traumatizing and you can never rebuild from that. I mean,
Mm.
it's done. I mean,
It
the
leaves its
relic,
scars. It leaves its scars,
yeah.
and it traumatizes. And out of it, some people find their courage and their strength and their abilities, but others are crippled for life. I interview an awful lot of veterans, and they know right up front because I tell them I'm anti-war. Uh, and but it is for me, I'm celebrating their survival and what they're doing for other veterans and other people who go through post-traumatic stress. And they have
Mhm.
all found ways to create something, to be the answer that someone's looking for because it wasn't there for them.
I
Right.
love that.
And they're
I
not
love that.
warmongers, they would say with what who I was when I went out there is not who I am now.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're not celebrating any of the war things, but they do celebrate their comrades, and the closeness that they have to have with each other. And then when they lose someone and they survive, and a few of them, one of them, Henway, he was a Hummy blew up. He lost everyone, and he was burnt down to his skull and lost part of his arm. And he went through what you calling the survival guilt. Why did I survive? All right. And young girl Keshi, who was on America's Got Talent, burned victim. She was only two survived. She was 65% of her body built on a plane crash. And most of them school kids that she went to school with, all going home for Christmas. And yet each one of them, and I put the two of them together, it was a very impactful show because there was no self-pity whatsoever. He became a comedian, she became a singer. And it was all about, yeah, I'm on my 100th operation. Oh yeah, it's really, I'm itching all the time. Can you imagine? Oh yeah, I have the down moments, but it's all about the up moments, the grateful for being alive. I was given the gift of life. What am I going to do to honor that gift? And for all the survivors that have gone through the most in life, it's always about how am I going to honor the gift of life I was given in order to help others. And they're the best ones to help others because they understand. So
I
you were
love
given a
that.
gift of life.
I love how we are co-creating societies of peace,
Yes.
because that's really where we need to put our attention is in how we make peace a priority. So I
We have
can't
to be the
imagine.
peace, though.
Yes.
We don't look for peace. We don't create peace. We become peace.
Yes,
We,
we have to have it within ourselves and
yes.
contribute it so it's a collective. But I also feel like, yes, peace needs to be systemized,
Yeah.
needs to be a priority.
Yeah. I mean, but for as long as you're going to have psychopathic narcissists in charge, dictators, and we're looking at people who are very fear-based and that is very ego-based, and that ego is incredibly insecure. They're incredibly insecure beings, and the only way they feel they can have power is respect is to be so controlling, and they don't care who pays for it, right? Death, economics, anything. They don't care who gets harmed for it. Whereas for as long as we have them as leaders, we're still going to have conflict. But when we could see the leaders that step up, and we as a public want to see the leaders who lead from heart, when we get behind the leaders that are driven by that heart, soul, spirit, then we're going to see the changes we need. But we're busy pointing fingers, their fault, their fault, their fault. But what are we doing about it?
Yes, exactly.
Are we getting behind the people that stand for peace and heart? Or have
Mm.
we bought into this fear mongering, control facting, and hate? And hate's so easy to do, folks. So, oh, I hate this. And then you get so emphatic about it. To love, the energy of love is just so, it's your generator. It's your
Yeah.
compass and it's your generator. And the more you love, the more you'll do things lovingly. Hate is such a stifler. It's an easy way out, right? It means that you do not want to do any of the work to heal yourself or to change the way you look at life. You just want to play blame.
Well, it also requires um, a taking of energy to
Yes.
sustain oneself,
Piranhas.
whereas love is emanating and is
Yes.
giving.
Yes.
And so, actually, um, people that stay in the taking, they rely on the lovers,
Yes.
on the people of peace
Yes.
to sustain themselves.
Yep.
So they're living off of us,
Right.
really.
But you know,
So people can still choose.
they can
Um,
do.
yeah.
They can do. That's fine. You can still choose. When I was coaching, I used to draw a ruler. I know everything's metric, but I'm old-fashioned. Everything's ruler, you know, inches and a foot. And I would say there's 6 to 12 are people on various levels of positivity. And that positivity is driven by love. And the higher they are up on the scale, the higher they're up on that vibration. And you have the 4 5s of people who have chosen to walk away from the despair or the hate or the discord and are seeking that love and seeking that positivity. And they're actively working on it. But you 1 to 3 of the piranhas. They love the hate. They love the loving. They love the shit stirring. They love it all. And they go after the 4 5s because they're the easiest one to draw the energy from. But they can't, you know, they may even get to the 6 or 7s, depending on their particular strength of hate, but they won't get to the higher levels. So we've got to choose what vibration level do we want to be on? Because the higher love vibration we are, the more these people have absolutely no impact on us at all. And in many ways, they know their time is coming. The world is changing so much to the love vibration and opening up to spirit and opening up to that consciousness that they realize that that's happening and they don't want to do that. And that's why they're the loudest right now in protest, because they're trying to hang on to that hate that, I'm sorry, mate, it's no longer to be a part of this universe. And you either get with the love program or you get left behind.
That's powerful.
It's up to us, isn't it?
That's
It's our
prophetic.
choice. I mean, you could have turned around, and I'm sure you did at one moment, hate the people who did that to the towers that changed your life so much and killed so many people. You could have gone down that hate and revenge and all of that road, and I'm sure you went through that emotion at one point. But how did it make you feel? It just brings on more despair and more hate and more disconnect. And you chose to go through, again, the guilt, I think, was the biggest thing that you went through of survival. But from
Yeah.
there, it pushed you into going, but why me?
And I
And that
also
journey of why
realized,
you led you to what you're doing today.
yeah, and I also realized that how terrible, I asked myself, how terrible is their life for someone to have no hope
Yeah.
but to go and kill themselves.
Yes.
So it was
Or
also me
another. Yeah.
wondering what's going on over
Yeah.
in their lives.
Mm.
And so I just realized, like, no group of people should ever be condemned for what a few do.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
wouldn't want anyone to do that, to any group I'm a part of and think that make me guilty of something that I didn't do just because someone that
Yeah.
looks like me
Yeah.
or that has the same religion as me or spirituality. And then you can't condemn the whole for a few. And I saw
For
that
the
in
action of a few. Yeah.
it was so awful to see that in New York. And you'll
Mm.
see even in the book, I talk about one part where I did stand up for people when they had a lot of what
Mm.
is it, Islamophobia.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I stood up against that because it's we're all people, we're all part of this human family, and we need to do so much more to bridge understanding. And so that's really a big part of why I do the work I do.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter what vessel we're in. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and we're put into different vessels for different experiences. And for us to be ignorant, arrogant, and hateful enough to condemn each other for our vessel are people that are running from something, not to something. And, you know, what is it about their upbringing? Because all children are born with the state of love. What is it about that upbringing that they were taught to hate so much? Or they were taught to feel less than? Or they were taught to fear? Because these things are taught to them. It's not born in them. I will admit, you do have some dysfunctional people like psychopaths, etc. There is something definitely rewired about them, and they always have been, and they always will be a psychopath. And that is just part of the mechanics of the way they were made. But most people are born from a place of love, wanting to be love, And that hate and that racism and that judgment, who the hell do you think you are to judge? We don't have the right to judge anyone. We do, and we are expected to care and understand.
Mm-hmm.
Compassion should be our leader, not judgment.
Oh, yes. I so agree with you.
You know, the simple triangle, I mean, that pause, take a breath. The emotion you're in right now, what is it about it that is driving it? And then going through the questions to try and understand the emotion that you're in right now and just pausing long enough to assess it before you react. I just wish more people would do that.
It was just such a powerful, that's why I was like, oh no, I got to make this journal. I was
Yeah.
like, so I have my book, Step, Step, Jump, for everyone to read that, but also the journal, because even as I do diversity workshops, I like them to have a tool
Yes.
that helps them through the journey of learning new things, of learning things that they had never known before, because it will bring up emotions and trigger. And so how do we keep our emotional wellness and understand and self-regulate,
Yes.
right? And understand, why am I being so bothered by this piece of
Mm.
history that I'm learning at work, or by this consultant or this DEI specialist? Like,
Yeah.
and the journal helps. It
Yes.
helps. It helps someone on the journey. And so I hope it helps others too, as we move forward in 2023.
The more we pause and reflect and understand why we're reacting the way we are, the more we can make choices to move in a different direction. But then the more aware and the faster we become aware of other things. Oh, okay, that emotion, where is it coming from? You know, really, I haven't got time for you right now. You know, we pay more attention to our own reactions. And why is this bothering me so much? And you know, sometimes it's just somebody's negative energy rubbing you the wrong way. Okay, all right. So what do I do about it? Can any of my positivity rub off on them? No? Okay, then I can avoid them. Right? I don't need to interact with them. Instead of going, why is this person doing this and doing that? Is that productive? Does that help you? Does that help them? Does it help anybody around you when you're in this pissed off mood? No.
Oh yeah. The only thing you can control is yourself.
Exactly. And, you know, that doesn't mean we're going to make it right every time, but just that ability to pause, reflect, and respond, not react, is
Of course. I
so
mean,
incredibly powerful.
it is. And I think the other thing that it helps you with is it's going to also help you to receive feedback
Yeah.
and to actually see the truth of what someone is saying. To actually, it's going to give you an understanding of like, oh, okay, I can see that. I mean, not all feedback 100% is completely right on, but at least it's going to allow you to receive it. Because
Yeah.
one of the things too, when you practice self-reflection and self-awareness, it gives you the ability to have people come back and share how they're feeling about how they're relating with you, or maybe something you said and how that made them feel. And there's nothing, you can always see how much growth someone's had in their life if they're willing to take feedback, right? People that are
Yes.
not willing to take feedback, it's very hard to kind of grow that relationship, or grow that working compatibility that you're looking forward, if the person is not on the receiving and
Right.
willing to receive.
Well,
So
don't
that's the
look at
other
it
thing
as a
about,
criticism. Look at it just as a simple critique on how to do something better. But we get personal about it as a criticism. No, it's a critique of an observation of how you're doing something and have you thought about doing it differently. Right?
yeah, I
So,
mean, I think the word critique is I'd say up level, a
mhm,
consideration for growth,
right.
right? Like an area that, you'd love to discuss with them. Yeah, because I think that,
Opening up to other perspectives. Yeah, you know,
yes, absolutely, right? Because I think with that word, I think people just
I
like
know
contract.
immediately. I know. And you know, and that criticism. They don't like me. They don't like anything I do. And we off we go on pity land. Right?
Yeah, but then it's like when someone is willing, and then you're also willing to do your work and then realize, huh, okay, I think I could have done better on boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, that's if you're, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to be self-aware
Yes.
because you are always trying to improve. So if you're not able to look at yourself and see,
Yeah.
well, what can I do better? And this is the opportunity we have for 2023 is what can we do better for ourselves? How can we show up better for our communities and really, like I always say, step, step, jump for our dreams.
You're right. You know, you're asking people to observe their own thoughts and where they come from, but you're also asking people to observe other people's thoughts and where they come from so that there is more room for growth, understanding, most certainly compassion. That means self-compassion, so we can step into the love vibration. And, you know, we're chasing all the time. What are we chasing? We're chasing an illusion, a societal expectation that's been pinned on us that really doesn't fit anyone. And when we stop and pause and really, you know, take the moment to actually understand, why am I feeling like this? Envy. Why do I feel envious over that person? Oh, they've got this and they've got this and got that. Well, do you really want it? Because with that comes this, this, and this. There's a price to pay for everything, right? And are you envious of them because you would love to have it yourself? Okay, then what are you going to do to go and get it, right? Be willing to ask yourself the questions and don't be
Mhm.
afraid of the answers.
Yeah, it's powerful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me
Oh,
on.
my pleasure, my pleasure. How do people get the book? How do people get to your site? And what kind of programming are you offering them for 2023?
Oh, yeah. So you can go to stepstepjump.com and click on book, and then you can download your audiobook. And then the program that I'm doing is really helping people with storytelling and doing that during lunchtime. Yeah, so I'll be starting a whole group session in the beginning of February, and now just really doing VIP one-on-one coaching in the meantime, because that really helps people make them feel safe. We get to
Mm.
know each other, and people really get to really transform as they share that story and grow. So
Well, I know
I'm
the biggest
excited.
takeaway that I've taken today is, you know, is the just pause and kind of reflect on what emotion or what state of your thought right now. And before you react to it, try and understand where it's coming from. And then, you know, respond accordingly, but don't, you know, just take that breath, take that pause, have a look. You know, it's not leaping the 3 steps. It's step, step, and then you can take the jump because you know you could be sure-footed, right? But you're not going to know if you're going to be sure-footed if those first 2 steps feel a bit wobbly. So be willing to pause and go through the steps before you take the leap.
I love that, Sarah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, 2023 is going to be what we decide to make of it, right? The power lies within us. Whatever the external things that's happening in the world, we have the power to decide how we're going to react to it. So again, when you see interest rates go up, or you see this is happening, or recession happening, just pause for a moment, look at it and go, what does it mean to you? What changes are you going to have to do? And don't panic.
Yes. Yeah, keep that inner peace.
But at the same time, you know, when you know you need to have to move your ass and get going, get going. Don't just follow the rest of the sheeple. You know you need to get out of there or get in there or do something. Trust your instinct. Trust your instinct. And if the instinct says go, then go. Right? Thanks
Completely
very
agree.
much for sharing today. And I did listen to the first chapter of the book, the audio, beautifully spoken, very, very profound, and will leave everybody with something. So whether they listen to the audio book or buy the book or whatever, it is definitely worth listening to because it's again that reflection on our own lives, the own struggles that we're going through, how to look at it, why it's important to again take that pause, reflect, and then know when to leap. So thanks so much for being with us here today.
Such an honor. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
My pleasure. And to everyone else out there, 2023, well, we're off to a good start. You've had some great information. Don't forget to pause, reflect before you take that leap or that step. Bye for now, folks. So catch you next time. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations or follow us on Patreon, and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.